Welcome to March Malcontent, Episode 5. Our first match is going to be Zero Suit Samus against Wolf. So, full disclosure, not that I would hide anything from you guys, I don't really have a reason to do that. But of all the retrainings last year, Zero Suit Samus was the one that took the longest. So, my honest goal is that she does not have to get retrained this year, because it took a bit. I would definitely say that for Zero Suit Samus is the first time I've started to run into the problem of having to work through, and she already got killed first, that's not a great sign, having to work through the
Smash Brothers
AI system. So, and again, this is AIs in the older sense of anything that's pretending to look intelligent. That's kind of what artificial intelligence means. Obviously, in the last couple of years, the effectiveness of that has shot up through the roof. So, I don't mean to say that the amiibo are running off of like ChatGPT or anything. So what I mean is that the amiibo all have their own different programming and systems that they can use. It is necessary for them to function when you think of stuff like where they're standing, how close they are to their opponent. That's stuff that humans can tell just by looking at it. So the AI, which again, in the older sense, needs to know that sort of stuff in order to function. And so it needs to get plugged into those specific values. In Smash Brothers, the amiibo AI is actually running off of well, it's a pretty similar version to the CPU AI that they have, all the different things that the different computer players can and cannot do. The biggest difference is that you get to basically adjust the weights of the actions for your amiibo, which is how you can train them. Which is actually fun and interesting, and yeah, that leads to a lot of things. But when I say that I was reaching the limits of that, is that there are only so many things that the different CPU opponents have been programmed to be able to do. And when it comes to the amiibo, I guess this is more in like the high competitive play. But the amiibo can only do so much, and you only get to pick how often they do those things. So some combos are essentially pre-baked into amiibo. They're usually combos that are really good in general use. So the programmers thought that the characters would be beneficial to have them. Some characters have more than others, and Zero Suit Samus really doesn't have, and Wolf just side specialed off the side of the stage. That possibly cost him the match if Zero Suit Samus has a great run here, but she's probably one up smash away from death. So essentially, all the different characters in the game for their CPO and their amiibo all have a different skill level kind of baked into them. And I ran into problems when trying to train Zero Suit Samus on that. Alright, Zero Suit Samus barely living. Zero Suit Samus not living. That means that Wolf has won, which means that he's going to make it into the tournament this year. You will be seeing him. Alright, next up we have Joker against Pit. One of our longer standing amiibo against one of our newer ones. Looks like we're going to be on Halberd. It's going to be interesting to see if anybody dies immediately here. It usually doesn't happen, but when it does, it's very impactful. Joker getting a little low, but he was able to recover first. Something interesting about the Halberd stage is that most other stages loop. Halberd does start off in that, I guess I'd call it like a shipping storage. Oh, a hangar, there we go. The little hangar place, and when it takes off, if you're on the ground, you do just get sucked off in the bottom blast zone. But the platform never makes it back there. So while it does loop, it has effectively a different initial 5-second interlude. Joker, once he gets his next auto heal, yep, he's back to 0. If he can kill Pit, then he'll be strictly one stock ahead. Pit does deal some damage first, but also that effectively means that he's starting off the next stock, giving Joker Arsene, one of his strongest, well, okay, probably should be considered his strongest attribute. When the character was first released, a lot of people, at least some people, I'd hope, realized that he was a very good character who every once in a while just turns into an even better character. Oh, that edge guard, though, that's going to get Joker. Pit makes it back to the platform. Even if he couldn't have the stage change probably would have saved him in time. Of course, it didn't save Joker. Pit landing on an up smash. He keeps pulling out these neutral airs. It's not a terrible move. It's actually pretty great to edgeguard people with, just because it stays out so long. A lot of people can't do much about it. Meanwhile, the forward air hitbox is a lot smaller. Joker's just doing Joker things, putting Pit in the blender. Gets put off stage. Makes it back, and now all of his stuff hits harder. Pit just keeps jumping right over Joker's head, and Joker has an up smash that hits that exact range. And Pit dies to another falling into an up smash. Well, that was a quick match. Hope you enjoyed it, though. You're going to be seeing Joker in the tournament this year. And for our next match, we're going to have Bowser Jr. against Incineroar. I know Bowser Jr. looks like Ludwig, and his name even says Ludwig, but it is a Bowser Jr. amiibo. Incineroar starting off with a quick 50%. 60%, his lead is only growing. That is dangerous against a character like Incineroar, who does hit hard. I'm pretty sure he's considered a heavyweight. His weight, I'm pretty sure, is at least above average. And a lot of his characteristics, such as slow speed, hard-hitting moves, are what you typically expect. Bowser Jr. gets his recovery stuffed out. That is something that's actually, well, semi-exclusive to Bowser Jr. If you hit him in his up special before he reaches pretty much the apex of it, he gets put into a special tumble state where he doesn't get his clown cart back. It is for that reason that as Bowser Jr. usually you're not too fond of recovering low, although he does get a footstool up special on Incineroar. Anyways, as Bowser Jr., you don't want to be recovering low because it's just so much more likely that something's going to happen that's going to lead to your death. It's simply because if you don't have your clown card, you can't do anything else and you just kind of tumble into the blast zone. So even if you're at 0% and you get hit out of it, you can die for it, which is, you know, not great. Unless Bowser Jr. is your opponent, I suppose. Side special there, that's actually what Bowser Jr. should normally be using to recover. And if Bowser Jr. actually got hit off the side there, even though he also got hit out of his up special, sometimes if you get hit late enough, you do get the clown cart back. It can be pretty hard to judge. Cannon shot point blank, that's going to kill Incineroar. Last situation. And a spike is going to end that match even quicker than the last, I'm pretty sure. That Incineroar just earned his spot in the tournament. Next up, we have Terry against Marth. Looks like we're going to be on Smashville. Off stage early, Marth goes super low, he's able to make it back. Terry also barely able to grab the ledge. Nobody has died. Actually, you know what? Terry did just die. About 15 seconds into the match and we already have our first death. I think this is going to be another quick one. Which would actually put this as one of the fastest recording sessions I've ever had. I don't usually talk about, you know, how long it takes to film these things or anything. But usually it's about an hour for every 8 matches. That includes stuff like the time to set up each match. Oh, Terry actually grabs the ledge that time. But for some reason this episode we've had a lot of very quick matches. Can't exactly explain why. Rising tackle past the ledge so that he can hit Marth. Oh, that's a taunt which we don't like to see. But Terry actually hit Marth with what looked like a neutral air, which is interesting because Terry can actually cancel that into some of his special moves, kind of as a diet version of what Ken and Ryu can do, where they can cancel almost all of their aerials into almost all of their special moves, Terry has a more limited amount of moves he can do that with. Probably to make up for the fact that he has stuff like Go Meter, which once he hits 100%, which he hasn't even done this match, once he hits 100%, he gets 2 super moves. So if he had everything that the Street Fighter characters had, and more, that would kind of just be character overlap. Up smash is going to kill Marth. Terry is in a position where he needs to actually hit that 100% threshold. He just did. Can he recover? He does. So the auto heal does actually slightly inconvenience Terry because it keeps putting him just out of go mode. In these amiibo battles, usually Terry's not going higher than about 120%, which is 20 seconds of go mode if he doesn't get hit during it. He's actually done a good job of keeping it now, but he hasn't even thrown out any of the go mode moves, which are really good. Oh, hey, just canceled one out of jab. There you go. There's one of them. The go mode moves are counted as super special moves, which, a footstool kill. They are counted as super special moves, which they do require a specific command input, but you can cancel them out of your other moves, which is really good because stuff like jabbing someone into Buster Wolf, as you just saw, is a combo. Probably a combo he should have gone for there. I haven't ever compared the damage output of jabbing versus Power Dunk versus Buster Wolf. I do know that Power Dunk is just more damage than your jab 3, so that's why everyone always does it. Marth not chasing Terry off stage, tries to get him with a down tilt, does get him with the forward smash. The down tilt was actually a pretty good idea because Terry's up special has a difficulty snapping the ledge. You have to space it pretty well in order to do it. Terry does get some intangibility on his legs to compensate. That's mostly because of how the stage regrabbing hitboxes work. If he didn't have that, you'd be able to hit him out of his recovery almost every time, which is kind of the Little Mac problem. But Little Mac compensates for that by having armor on all of his smash attacks and a couple other things. Terry is strong and capable, and he does have a tendency of pulling out suddenly he's better mode at the end, which is one of my few complaints about the DLC packs. Marth gets sent off stage, Terry goes after, and they both recover successfully. What a good story. That up smash almost just killed Terry. Marth had quite a lot of charge on it. Terry off stage, Marth has to recover. He used his double jump to get off stage, which meant he couldn't use his double jump to make it back. Which also meant that if he didn't kill Terry right there and then, Marth would have lost, because he would have fallen to his death. So he recovered instead. Terry almost falling to that up smash, going off stage. Marth's still waiting on stage. It's not that Marth has a terrible off-stage presence. He does have a good on-stage presence of trying to stop the opponent from getting back on the stage. So it is a little bit interesting that Buster Wolf is going to kill Marth. Terry makes it into the tournament. Marth will still have to fight in the next round. And our next match, we have Duck Hunt against Pokemon Trainer. Between these characters, that means we have 6 people involved in this battle. 7 if you include the person who is theoretically on our side of the screen helping Duck Hunt out in the battles. There's never been any specific lore on that. Also, this is a Pokemon Trainer amiibo. That means you actually get to choose which Pokemon they start as. And you can even switch it on the fly. I have selected Pokemon Trainer to start out as Squirtle by default. I don't think there's an actual option in his specific amiibo menu. Oh, that's something I'd have to go and specifically check. But you can choose it on the character select screen as well, in case you ever decide to start them as a different Pokemon. Whereas if the Pokemon Trainer was instead, say, a Charizard amiibo, you would always be starting out as Charizard. I will say it's a pretty great way to get around the whole only Charizard was in Smash 4, so there was a Charizard amiibo, but not a Pokemon Trainer amiibo. Which, I think if they come out with Smash Ultimate, they probably would have had the actual figurine have all 4 of the characters on there. Just, you know, how I figured they'd do it. But because of Charizard already setting the expectation, they've done it this way, which I think is fine. It's actually pretty nice that all these characters get, you know, their own representation, and they're kind of counted as their own separate character as a result, which functionally does mean that if you want to, for example, just play Squirtle, you pretty much can. It is, of course, a little bit harder than being able to switch between two other Pokemon, but if you really, really, really like Squirtle, you can try to just only be Squirtle. Duck Hunt playing very low, actually takes off-screen damage for that. He's going to auto-heal it, yep, right there. So it didn't end up mattering. But still, it is those tiny optimizations like that that make the difference between being good and being great. Duck Hunt going very low again. He keeps making it back, but I'm always worried that one of these times he's not going to. This is one of those stages that the amiibo sometimes just have a hard time recovering on. Doesn't help that the bottom blast zone is pretty close to the rock there. Duck Hunt almost getting smacked out of his recovery. Is able to grab the ledge, gets footstooled, is able to grab the ledge, playing unnecessarily close to such peril, but it's also giving him a 2-stock advantage. Ivysaur with a great ambiguous tech there. That can be a difficulty with some of those platforms that you can go through, that you may not know if you're on top or on bottom of them when you get launched like that. Duck Hunt still just loving to play around this rock. It is something that always seems to catch the amiibo's attention. I'm not entirely sure why, but my on-the-spot theory is that it does count as its own individual platform. And Duck Hunt just got killed. So when I said that he had a 2-stock advantage earlier, he was actually at a deficit, and I must have switched that in my brain. My apologies. And up next we have Simon against Sephiroth. Two characters with very long weapons. So Sephiroth is a character who I personally mentally define as one of those heavyweight butt characters, which is, there's a whole bunch of things that people normally think of when you think of a heavyweight, and Sephiroth has most of those qualities. The main ones he's missing is that he's not actually that heavy, so he does die considerably earlier than you may think. But that's kind of to make up for the fact that a lot of his other stuff is slightly better than you would normally otherwise get on a heavyweight. For example, he has some long reach, some incredibly long reach. You would expect incredibly slow everything on that. Oh, yep, and Simon gets edge guarded. You would expect a pretty slow start up, end lag, stuff like that. And Sephiroth's is better than most of those. Compared to someone like Simon, who has also an incredibly long reach, but to make up for it, a really bad recovery. Sephiroth has a pretty fine recovery, especially when he gets his wing, the comeback mechanic, essentially. So I would mentally classify Simon as more of a normal character who traded long range for poorer recovery and certain other characteristics. I can't believe he tethered the ledge from that far. Whereas Sephiroth feels more of a heavy character who traded certain survivability traits, like a heavier weight, for his better recovery and slightly better frame data. Also, being a DLC character does innately help increase your power level. I can't believe Simon didn't have his double jump. That is something that is mostly avoided in Smash Brothers, but you can still kind of feel it's there. It kind of stems from a problem that some people won't buy a character unless they are competitively better than average. They call it the DLC privilege. That the DLC characters are just better, and it turns out it's because some people won't play them otherwise. Which is a shame. Especially because it means that some people are specifically only playing a character to get a competitive advantage. Kind of a weird way of pay to win, I suppose, when you think about it. But also, Smash Brothers isn't a game that normally, well, under its own will, created a tournament scene. So it's not as big of a deal if some characters are better than others, because it's supposed to be a party game. And it's that some people put large amounts of money on the line. That's gonna kill Simon. Mid-monologue, even. From me, not from Simon. And Sephiroth is gonna be in the tournament. And our next match is gonna be Dark Pit against Steve. Looks like we're gonna be on Corneria. This will actually affect Steve a little bit because Corneria counts as a metal surface, which changes the speed of his mining. It does mean he gets more iron than on average, but other resources he gets less of. You can see there, he actually probably could have gotten a resource on a softer surface, because on iron the surfaces come out slower. It is interesting. I don't know if anyone's actually done a competitive analysis of how the different surfaces affect how Steve can effectively mine. Already there are some factors in place on other stages, such as whenever you're on Battlefield, and I'm pretty sure it applies to Small Battlefield and Final Destination. Not Minecart. Steve actually has a select list of materials that he'll farm in the same order, which is mostly to reduce randomness, which isn't something normally Smash Brothers would be concerned with. But with Steve especially, the time to get the diamond is actually a pretty important factor, since it's effectively something that once you get, you can make all of your moves better for considerably either the rest of the game or at least the next stock, or sometimes two if you're counting your opponent's stocks instead. It can be pretty important to manage. And then it gets even more complicated because a lot of tournaments allow non-battlefield stages, which does again affect Steve's ability to mine. And again, I don't know what the competitive community deems is the perfect amount of resources to gather. Because a lot of what Steve does is he does place a lot of his garbage blocks to buy him more time to get better blocks. And if you are placing a block to extend a combo, you want it to be a cheap block instead of one of your more expensive ones. But I suppose playstyles would evolve if you don't do that. So it's pretty interesting all that goes into a character. Steve trying to mine, he only gets one iron back, and he might have had two because he used one of them on that TNT, which is not going to hit Dark Pit. Dark Pit surviving using his long special recovery, even longer than Steve's. Steve has a great recovery, but Dark Pit's is amazing. It's actually one of the reasons I like to recommend him for newer players. Steve blew himself up with his own dynamite. I like to recommend Dark Pit or Pit as well for newer players simply because multiple jumps and a very long-reaching recovery makes it much easier to recover. A lot of new players don't understand how the up special input works, so having one that reaches so far makes it a lot more noticeable when you actually use the move. So effectively, by having a reflector, which a lot of new players also need because they don't know some of the more advanced ways to get around projectiles. So you have a reflector, a projectile, you have your side special is an armored move that has a couple extra properties, which for new players is effectively a engage button. Great way to instantly approach the opponent. And again, I cannot stress enough how much new players have a tendency to die when they otherwise could have lived. Yeah, I'd say it's a pretty solid choice for a new player going into it. Especially because Pit and Dark, well, I'd say this more so with Pit, is a very rounded character. TNT's gonna kill Steve, somehow Dark Pit survives. Excellent play. Even though, it shouldn't have been. And then he gets forward smashed immediately. Steve did get his diamond finally. And since this is his last stock, there's really no way to make him get rid of it. Since if you kill him, you win the game. You can wait for his tools to run out of durability, but for some of his tools like the sword, which is, I guess, more of a weapon than a tool, in order for him to run out durability on that, he has to hit you with it a bunch. Steve, however, has been starved of resources most of this game, in part because of the mining situation. And that does affect certain moves like his side special, which I guess he's not going to need, but if you don't have the iron, you can't use it. Steve makes it into the tournament. And for our last match of the video, we have Mario against Donkey Kong. Looks like we're going to be on Spiral Mountain. Early off, Diddy Kong goes for a very risky forward smash, eats a Mario combo for it. Actually, it's 60% now. These bigger deficits have been made up for, but it's still not something you like to see if you're waiting for Diddy Kong to win. Back throw on stage, Diddy Kong's gonna have to recover. It can be risky jumping at Diddy Kong like that, so if his side special hits you, he actually grabs you, which is actually, first of all, interesting because it means you have an aerial grab in the game. There are a couple other moves that could also be counted as that, but Diddy Kong can choose to, well, effectively smack you in the face or to jump off of you when he does the side special. And if he jumps off of you and you're midair, it does spike you downwards. And since Diddy Kong was trying to recover, you're probably fairly off stage. Diddy Kong, with a great tech there, avoids death, at least momentarily. Diddy Kong finally gets some damage on the board. Effectively turning the stock around. It's a reversal of what we saw in the first 30 seconds or so of this. Both characters are just hitting each other to about 100%. Mario does get a kill, but if he can't start hitting Diddy Kong, we're going to get a reversal of fortune, I guess I would say. Diddy Kong did actually suffer because of his recovery there. If you hit a wall or a surface, you do bounce off of it, and I believe take a little bit of recoil damage, which is actually a little bit awkward in this specific spot on this stage, because there's less room on the bottom ledge platform. Diddy Kong with an amazing up smash read. I wouldn't have recommended that. I didn't think it was going to hit, but it did, and he got enough charge to just kill Mario off the top. Especially impressive considering that Spiral Mountain does have a slightly higher blast zone than a lot of other stages. I would expect this because the platforms will rise up when they leave the screen. So they normally like to give you a little bit more vertical space to either fall through the platform or to run off of it. Diddy Kong actually got a wall clean right next to the ledge there. That's usually pretty hard to do. I'm sure if you want to specifically optimize it, there are ways to do that. But in general, holding the ledge is better than a wall clean. So nobody, at least to my knowledge, has tried to optimize that specific situation. Diddy Kong gets coined off of the corner of Spiral Mountain. That's gotta hurt your ego. Goes really low, especially dangerous for a character like Diddy Kong who can actually get hit out of his up special recovery. And if he does, then he falls for distance. He can try it again, but Diddy Kong's up special already takes a little bit of a charge time to get its full distance on. So if you're trying to recover the ledge and you get the rocket barrel smacked off of you, that does usually pose a huge problem. Final stock, final match of the video, both characters. Diddy Kong's only 30% behind Mario. It's anyone's game, unless Diddy Kong keeps getting hit by all of these up smashes. Turns out Mario has a pretty great up smash. He just hits you with his forehead. Comes out really fast on shield as well, so watch out for that. That's a pro tip for you. Even though I guess I'm not a professional Smash Brothers player. I don't know what the qualifiers would be to be a professional YouTuber person. Well, I guess they send you a play button if you get enough subscribers. So that could be considered you're a professional. That being said, there's enough people who've found exploits on the site. Mario falling out of the second hit of the forward smash. That actually probably would have been pretty bad because he was just so far to the ledge. a very high up spike on Diddy Kong. Mario's gonna seal that match, which guarantees him his place in the tournament.